Welcome to Conversations with Tom Shorkey. Conversations explores the past, the present, and the future of the communities in which we live through the eyes of interesting individuals. Now let's join our host, Tom Shorkey.
Welcome to Conversations. I'm Tom Shorkey, your host for today's program. Now, today's guest is going to be a very interesting young man. You know, if you've been through Marine City at all in the last few months, you've seen a big sign on the corner of Bridge and Water Street on the window that says, "Thanks for 77 years." People who followed the news have noticed that is going to be the site of a new boutique hotel that's going to further enhance the revitalization of downtown Marine City. But when you look at a sign that says, "Thanks for the 77 years, you know that there's more to the story. And with that story, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Ed Terhune. How are you doing today, Edward?
Very good, thank you.
Now, Ed, you've had a lifetime on the corner of Bridge and Water Street. Before we talk Terhune Motor Sales, let's go back a little bit to your youth. Did you actually grow up in Marine City?
Sure did.
Where, what neighborhood?
But Cotterville Township,
Okay.
South River Road, is where we lived. The dealership was out in Marine City on Bridge and Water.
All right. Now, Terhune, at one time, if you ever looked at the license plate holders on cars in Marine City, there were probably 3 or 4 different names, but there was a plethora of Terhune Motors.
You betcha.
When did Terhune Motors actually come into existence?
4/24/1939.
4/24/1939.
You bet.
Well, it couldn't have been you. You had only
No,
been about a year
a year
old at
old.
that time.
Year
So it
old.
must have been you. How did your dad come to begin?
Well, amazing story. There was this fella came in with a brandy new car, wasn't running good. Asked Dad, "Could you possibly get this car running for me?" And Dad says, "Sure, if you can leave it for a little bit, give me your phone number." Got it all done. And when the man came back to pick up his car and paid him for it, he says, "Why aren't you selling Pontiacs?" And Dad says, "Because I wouldn't know how to go about it." He says, "I do." He said, "I'm president of General Motors Corporation. Be in my office on such and such a date. You are a Pontiac dealer." Cold turkey.
1939.
Paperwork, zero.
Yeah. So in 19 was that building, or was that where your dad had been a mechanic in that corner? Or
Next door, the Gregory building,
Okay.
is where Dad started out working for a Ford dealer. And when the Ford dealer, Dad came to work, the Ford dealer never came in. He says, "You run it better than I do to start with."
Mm-hmm.
So bottom line is, no, he bought the building next door, the corner of Bridge and Water, and then as business progressed, he added on a chunk and a chunk until we ended up going all the way the whole block.
So if you grew up south of Marine City, down there along M29, probably close to the area most people know as Cherry Beach. Is
Sure.
that probably the ballpark?
We went to school at Cherry Beach School.
The Cherry Beach School.
Walked down the railroad tracks every day.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Ed, because people knew of the Duck Inn or the Cherry Beach Inn and the little school next to it, which really, I don't think has operated as a school for probably 30, 35 years. But at
Right.
one time, that was the neighborhood school.
It was
So you were a Marine City High grad, class of what?
1955.
But you know, when we did the research for Conversations, and we checked the class of 1955, we found out that Edward Terhune was the youngest graduating senior in that class. How did that happen?
One day, the teacher, Mrs. O'Leary, and she taught grades 1 through 8, because 9 you had to go up to the high school. And she said, "I have a letter here I want you to bring home to your mother." And when I came in, I said, "Mother, this is from Mrs. O'Leary." Her words were, "What did you do now?" And I said, "Nothing that I know of." Well, bottom line is, she opened the letter and says, "We are going down there tomorrow to see her." And then right away, she said, what did Edward do? And she said, he did nothing, but I need your permission to do something. I have 2 third graders, your son is a 2nd grader, and I want your permission to push him from grade 2 to grade 3. He can handle it. Good, go for it. That's why I was the youngest off.
So you must, what, only 16 or 17 when you graduated?
16.
Okay, your dad's in the car business. Your brother's about 1.5 years younger than you, so you were the first Terhune in line. And how old were you when you got actively involved in the dealership?
We were there every day. We went after school. Mother would pick us up after school and bring us to the shop at 3 o'clock. And we'd work from 3 till 6, Monday through Friday. Saturday was from 8 till 6. And Sunday, we worked from 8 till 4. But Father let us have an hour off to go to church.
So you
7
talk
days.
about being grown up in the business.
7 days.
And I'd asked you this question once. I said, did either you or Andy ever consider some different kind of career? Or?
Not really, because we have 5 or 6 or 7 businesses under the dealership. I mean, you got a parts department, a service department, a sublet department. You got bookkeeping department, inventory control. Each business has to hold its own.
So there was more than enough to keep you busy. You didn't look for a job selling Fuller brushes or whatever.
No way.
After high school, what did you do?
After high school, I went to GMI, General Motors Institute, Flint, Michigan, took a dealer co-op course. We went to school for 2 months, and then we came back to the dealership and applied what we learned for the next 2 months, and then vice versa through a 2-year period. Amazing that dealers' sons and principals and or this Frigidaire and all that stuff worldwide were only allowed to send their people to the school at GMI. I was with just a young kid, green thumb, didn't know that much. And one day we were having a lecture the professor came up with, and he was starting something, and all of a sudden the hand went up, and my buddy put his hand up. He says, paragraph 3, sentence number 2, you're wrong. See me after class. And then finally he got me after class, the buddy, he says, don't listen to him, listen to me. And he carried me through the system.
There, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so your dad started his Pontiac dealership in '39. At some point, also acquired like the Buick and the GMC line. About what year would that?
1959, for the 60 model year, we bought out Stockwell Buick GMC. Stockwell Buick GMC for the 1960 model.
Now, in growing up in small towns, it's not like today when if somebody wants a car, they go to the mega dealers with 600-800 cars and trucks on their lots, or they'll go down to Macomb County where there's just like, it seems like a gazillion cars available. But in the 50s, in the 60s, and even in the 70s, every small town had their own dealerships. So in Marine City, you were Pontiac GMC. What else was in Marine City at that time?
Well, at that time we had the Buick and the GMC Stockwell. We had the Wally Jones in the Dodge dealership. We had Bill Drinkard in the Ford dealership. And we had John Holland in the Chevrolet Olds dealership. And as you were talking, yes, they go to a dealer that's got 700 or 800 cars. When you walk in, you are a king. And when you come in for service, you are a number. And in our deal, we could sell the car, and we also paid close attention to customer service, which meant customers come back because the words were good, and if the words were bad, they don't take care of us. That hurts.
What percentage back in the day were of your new car customers were repeat customers?
I would say between 80 and 85%
Really? Wow.
repeats.
And then eventually their children and their grandchildren.
And then they
also,
brought
so-
their kids came in, and we sold 3 generations deep.
Well, something, you know, and we had not talked about this, but all of a sudden the small town dealerships dried up. Was it like the corporate world made it too hard for individuals that maybe would have an inventory of 30 or 40 cars to keep up with what the big boys were doing?
Well, the big boys had a mental picture of a $3 or $4 million monument that would look super to General Motors peoples, that would cost an arm and a leg. You never get your money back by putting that investment
into the actual dealership and
Right.
service area kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
I have noticed lately that most dealerships kind of resemble each other, so I'm sure there must be a blueprint, footprint
blueprint.
someplace that says if you want to do business, this is what you have to do.
That's it. Yes, sir.
Okay, your dad started in '39.
Mm-hmm.
You and Andy, probably from the mid-'50s on, worked right alongside him. Around 1976, your dad says, I'm going to slow down, turn things over to you and your brother.
Yep.
The Terhune brothers sold a lot of cars for probably another 10 years, 1986 or
Yep.
so. Was that, I think, when your father passed away?
My father passed away in '86, yes.
And
Then Andy and I became the dealers. And then 2 years later, he decided he wanted to go out on his own and open up a used car operation in Marysville, of which I bought his half out of the dealership and had that for the next 20 years.
Oh, okay. So around in mid-'90s or so, Andy thought he would specialize in used cars.
Yep.
You held down the corner office. Now, that chair that you've sat in for this last 10 or 20 years, was that always your desk, or was that your dad's corner?
Actually, that was son Mark's desk up there.
Oh, is that right?
But it was the ideal place for me to be
Yeah.
when I'm by myself, because I could tell everything that was going on the street, pulling in, through the dealership, service department. I could see the whole thing.
There was once upon a time with Terhune's on the corner. You had your cars out around your dealership, and you had that lot right on the St. Clair River.
Yep.
And then whatever closing time was, if it was 8 o'clock or something, about 7:45, you guys started putting all your cars inside.
Everyone. Because of the theft and people jumping on them, taking a rake and
vandalism,
vandalism,
antennas or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. It was cheaper to have them clean and fresh going out in the morning rather than just parts of the car when you came.
Then in '96, Andy went into his own business. You're maintaining the corner for another 8 or 9 years with GMC, et cetera. And I don't. Was that about the? They didn't phase Pontiac out at that time, did they?
No. No. I sold the Buick, the Pontiac, and the GMC names, franchises, to the dealership St. Clair Chevrolet up on King Road.
Oh, okay.
They purchased the names and they took our inventory, and son Mark went to work for them. And yes.
All right, then but then you stayed on your corner and you did used cars and kind of took care of business on that corner.
And still sold new cars, because I was one of their salespeople.
Oh, wow.
Because if I was the dealer selling you a car last time, and now I'm also going to sell you the car again this time, but it's going through the other dealership, I was still...
Oh, I did not realize
Oh,
that.
yes. Oh, yes.
How would you say the difference, the experience today for somebody going in to buy a new car in 2016 compares to when somebody walked in the dealership in 1964?
Well, they're more educated to the fact they know a good portion of the rebates and or incentives and or employee incentive, friends and family stuff to reduce the price of the automobile. The salesperson has got to be sharp, because some people don't want to be romanced. Some guys want you to tell them a story from now till next week, and other people said, hit me with your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that type.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm gonna make money, I'm gonna make something out of it. I'm not gonna go broke selling you a car, and I'm not gonna retire off of selling you a car. I'm gonna get a fair amount, like you get when you go to work.
Somewhere in the middle. And I would imagine the internet has changed things a little bit too, because everybody owes price shopping online with all the different dealerships. You yourself were in the business, were counting when you went in as kindergartner and washed the cars. So, 70 years or so of hanging out in the car business, and you have seen in that time some really good salesmen, some mediocre ones, and some people who just didn't cut it.
Okay.
And sometimes, like, when you walk into dealerships, it's kind of like everybody thinks they want to be a realtor, and so they go to real estate school, and then they find out they don't have a knack for it. But what really makes a difference for someone to be really successful?
Okay, there's 3 words that I live by. I got 2 salespeople selling cars. One guy sells more cars than the other. Why? Because he lives by these words, and then some.
What's that?
And then some. I do my job and stop. I do my job and more, which means and then some. And that's the difference between a professional, a goer, a getter, and the guy that's just plain Jane.
Those are very good words. How about this? How now your corner became pretty popular in the news media in the last year or so. How in the world did a hotel all of a sudden show up on your corner? How did that all play out?
Well, the Vertons from Harson's Island, I saw an ad in the paper where the old Fisher Inslee building over the bridge and that triangle, they were thinking of buying that and converting it into motels. The minute I saw that, I picked up the telephone. I never talked to Kathy or Tom Verton, and I said, my name's Terhune. I'm on the corner of Bridge and Water, and I saw your proposal about the Fisher Inslee building. I got one word to say. When you're all done, and I'm sure you'll do a good job, and when your customer pulls the draperies open, and you look out at that beautiful Bell River, as brown as it is, or you could pull the drapery open and look out at that St. Clair River, the park's right there, ferries across to Canada, your choice. 15 minutes later from the island, including the ferry, they were at the dealership.
Really? That's I have Tom and Kathy were guests on the show, and we've talked about their theaters. And for our audience at home who may not be aware of it, Tom and Kathy put the Snug Theater together, and then they have the Riverbank where the old Marine City Bank and Trust was, and now are going to develop a boutique hotel in the corner. And I had never heard that story until just now. And to me, that looks like a pretty smooth operator who used to sell cars by and then some.
And then some.
And then
those
some.
words.
Would have been a great hotel over on the Bell
The
River.
guy that just cuts enough grass but doesn't do the edging. The guy that does the edging is and then some, and they want him back. There's the game.
So the property is
it's all his.
That's a done deal?
The property is theirs, and it's been almost 3 months sitting there idle. Don't know why.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of
red tape
paperwork to go through. So how have you adjusted after every day up early, and I had heard 4 or 5 in the morning, dealership till dark? What's going on with you?
I'm up every day at 5 a.m. or before, and I sacrificed fixing the things at the house, working on my boat, the underground sprinkling system, etc., all the way through, because I lived at the dealership and I slept at the house. And now that I'm back at the house full-time, I pick out 2 or 3 items, because I can't work on one by itself. I got to have a couple going. And yeah, I'm working at it.
Well, and you mentioned your boat, and I know from reading old newspapers in Marine City, the Independent Press, I think it was, there was an occasional picture of two brothers with a mahogany Chris Craft speedboat. What boat was that? And
There
what
was a
size
Chris Craft Holiday, planked mahogany with a good-sized engine aboard, and we water skied with that. We water skied from our boathouse in Marine City all the way down to the idle hour in the South Channel and back, just because we had a couple girlfriends down there.
Well, I'll take your word for that. It almost sounds like the guy who walked to school every day uphill, coming and going.
Yeah.
But, anyway, then, but what's in the boat? What's in the Terhune boathouse now? You don't still have that same Chris Craft, do you?
No, I've got a Chris Craft in there. I got a Chris Craft Ranger, a Sea Skiff Ranger, red and white. I guess if you were looking at a car, you're looking at a grunt, you're looking at a middle, you're looking at a luxury, and then if you went all the way to the top of the ladder, that's what I got.
And that is a 1965 boat that you've
65.
had for 50 years or so.
51 years.
51 years.
No, 50, excuse
50
me.
years.
50 I've had.
Wow.
When I go places to like Gull Island or whatever for the day, unload the stuff and get ashore, people walk by and throw their checkbooks up on my front deck.
Say, how
You fill out the top,
Yeah.
I'll sign the bottom. And I thank them, shake their hand and said, no way.
Well, you know, the Chris Craft, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother show, but those
Yeah.
boats being made
Yeah.
in Algonac, they were pretty
Yeah.
incredible. If you had one do-over in your life, is there something you would have done over along the way or done a little differently?
Done a little differently. Well, I got the right schooling, and I went to the other school, the School of Hard Knocks, and I was working for my dad because he didn't want just exact, he wanted it higher. No, I would say all things being equal, I wouldn't change professions. It was one of them things that was, that's what you were, as an auto dealer.
And you liked it, and
Yes.
and I think I heard a quote from you once about if you've got a job you like, it's like not even going to work.
But
or
people
something.
talk about being retired.
Yeah.
Okay, retired. Okay, after working, what, 25, 30 years at a shop, you're retired. Well, I've been 70. And the question is, when you find a job you like, really love, you'll never work another day of your life. That's me.
Great. Let me ask you this. I'm going to bring you back, and not for about 20 years or so, when we celebrate your 100th birthday.
That's coming up.
And it's coming up. And Sue probably wonders how she married such an old man. But when people want to remember, how do you want to be remembered? If somebody says, hey, do you remember old Ed Terhune? What do you want them to remember about you?
I always got a fair deal from them. They never disappointed me in the service department. And if I had a warranty coming, I got it. And if there was a rebate out there when I purchased, I know they didn't shave some of them away. They gave me a fair shake.
Good. Ed Terhune, it's been a pleasure having you on Conversations today. I hope for our listeners at home, they now know a little bit more about that little corner of Bridge and Water Street, Marine City, right across from the Holy Cross Rectory. There's still a sign, I think, thanks for the 77 years. It will be a boutique hotel. But after watching this show, you know, as they used to say in the news many years ago, the rest of the story.
The rest of the story.
Thanks for being with us. This has been Conversations. If you are interested in seeing this show or any of the others that we have taped, just go to watchctv.org, click on the icon for shows, go to Conversations, and there have been a host of interviews, much like Ed Terhune, that have really brought some insight into what our area has been like and how it is better because of people like Ed. Thanks for coming, Ed.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
You've been watching Conversations with Tom Shorkey. Conversations explores the past, the present, and the future of the communities in which we live through the eyes of interesting individuals. If you have an idea for a future conversation, please contact us at www.watchctv.org. Thanks for watching Conversations with Tom Shorkey.